Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be jumping into a story that I think you're going to find fascinating. It's Judges 18.
Ooh, yeah. Judges 18.
This is a story that's got it all.
Yeah.
Land grabs, religious rebels,
Yeah.
moral dilemmas that are shockingly relevant even today.
Oh, man. I'm excited for this one.
Buckle up. This one gets wild.
Okay, so Judges 18. What's interesting about this is it throws us into a time of chaos, right? There's no king. It's just these 12 tribes figuring things out for themselves. And the tribe of Dan, they're feeling particularly squeezed. They're still hunting for their slice of the promised land.
Yeah, everyone else is kind of settled in. They're like, hey, wait a minute, what about us?
Exactly. And
Right.
so they send out a scouting party.
5 men strong.
5 men strong.
To find a new home.
That's not...
That's not just a casual stroll.
No.
That's a full-on expedition.
It's an expedition.
Right.
And their journey takes them to the doorstep of a man named Micah,
Micah.
who has, shall we say, a unique religious setup.
He's like an independent contractor.
Yeah, he's got his own personal shrine going on.
Yeah.
Even hired a Levite priest to run it.
Now, you might think, hey, good for Micah. A little entrepreneurial spirit, side hustle.
Right.
But in those days, this was a big deal.
Right.
It wasn't just about personal faith. It was about power dynamics.
Yeah, think about it in a world where religious authority was very tightly linked to centralized power.
Right.
Having your own shrine was like printing your own money or declaring yourself king.
Yeah.
It directly challenged the existing order.
So Micah's little side hustle wasn't just unorthodox.
Right.
It was religiously subversive.
It really was.
It's as if he set up a tax haven right under the king's nose.
I like that analogy.
And guess who stumbles upon this?
The Danite scouts.
The Danite scouts.
Right.
On their mission to find land, they walk right into this hotbed of religious intrigue.
It's like a movie.
You can practically feel the tension building.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
The scouts move on. Eventually, they find the city of Laish.
The text describes Laish as secure and at peace.
Completely unaware of the danger
Oh.
lurking on the horizon.
That's foreshadowing, folks.
It's almost heartbreaking in retrospect.
Yeah.
And this sets the stage for one of the most morally complex parts of the story.
Oh, yeah.
The Danites' conquest of Laish.
So on the one hand, they're technically within their rights to seek territory,
Right.
but their methods,
Yeah, their methods are a little...
questionable.
Yeah, let's just say they raise some serious ethical questions.
They do.
They basically decide Laish is ripe for the taking.
Easy picking.
Peaceful, undefended city.
Oh.
Seems like a pretty good target for a tribe looking to expand its territory.
Sure does.
Right. And it's here that we see that timeless struggle between ambition and ethical conduct.
Yeah.
The Danites saw an opportunity and they seized it, even though it meant exploiting the vulnerability of others.
Makes you wonder, does the pursuit of our goals always justify the means?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right.
And remember Micah's hired priest?
Oh, yeah. What about him?
Well, the Danites decided he was just what they needed
Oh,
to legitimize their land grab.
oh.
They basically took him along with Micah's idols to bless their conquest.
Wow.
Awkward doesn't even begin to describe it.
No, it doesn't.
It's almost as if they were trying to dress up their actions with a veneer of religious approval.
Right.
Hey, look, we got a priest and religious idols. We must be doing the right thing.
Yeah, but are they really?
It makes you wonder, was this priest truly on board with this whole scheme, or was he just caught up in the whirlwind?
Good question.
What does that tell us about how easily religious figures can be co-opted for less than noble purposes?
That's a great question. And it's a question that echoes throughout history, isn't it?
Yeah.
How often do we see those in positions of religious authority used to justify actions that, upon closer examination, are ethically questionable? Lots to think about there.
Lots to think about there. So they just take over Laish, rename it Dan, and they install these idols as if to say, see divine approval.
Like a twisted housewarming party.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they were trying to, dress up their actions with some sort of religious approval.
Right.
We got a priest, we got idols, we must be doing the right thing.
We're good.
Yeah. But are they really?
It makes you think about how often that happens even today. Leaders groups, whole nations claiming a higher power is on their side to justify taking what they want.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about colonialism.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the parallels now.
Yeah.
It's easy to read this as just kind of an ancient adventure story, but the Danites weren't exactly the good guys.
Not so much.
That we might have imagined.
And that's why the story is so powerful. It holds a mirror up to human nature, showing us how easily we can twist narratives, even spiritual ones, to fit our own ambitions.
So let's bring this a little closer to home for our listeners.
Yeah.
What are some modern-day laishes that we might be overlooking?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Situations where someone's vulnerability is being exploited, maybe even with a righteous spin.
That's a great question to ponder. It could be anything from unfair labor practices masked by corporate missions to the way certain groups are demonized to push a political agenda. The key is to look beyond the surface.
Right.
And ask who benefits and at whose expense.
Yeah, and that's a powerful point. Judges 18 isn't just an ancient tale. It's a warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the seductive power of narratives.
Right.
Especially those claiming divine backing.
Especially those.
It's a little scary.
It is.
When you think about it.
Yeah, and it's a call to action.
Yeah.
It challenges us to be more discerning, to question authority, and to stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable.
We've covered a lot of ground here, but I think there's one more crucial aspect of Judges 18 that we need to explore. The role of the Levite priest.
Oh, yes.
He goes from Micah's personal clergyman to the spiritual figurehead of a newly conquered city.
That's quite a promotion.
Yeah, it's quite a journey.
Yeah, and it raises some fascinating questions about the motivations of religious figures throughout history. Was this priest simply an opportunist?
Yeah.
Riding the wave of the Danites' ambition?
Right.
Or did he genuinely believe he was fulfilling a divine purpose?
It's like we have a psychological thriller within the larger story.
It is.
What pressures must he have felt? What compromises did he make along the way?
It's a reminder that even those in positions of spiritual authority are human,
Right,
with their own desires, fears, and ambitions.
Yeah.
And it challenges us to look beyond titles and robes and consider the complexities of individual choices within these larger power dynamics.
We've unpacked a lot here. The Danites' ambition, the vulnerability of Laish, the priest caught in the middle. It's a story that's both fascinating and unsettling.
Absolutely.
And it leaves us with a lot to consider, both about ourselves and the world around us.
Right.
What are our Laishes?
Ooh, good question.
Where do we see ambition overriding ethics?
Yeah.
And how can we be more mindful of the narratives, both religious and secular,
Right.
that shape our choices?
That's a lot to think about.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Judges 18, let's leave our listeners with one final thought-provoking question.
Okay, hit me.
If you were in the Levite priest's sandals, facing those choices, what would you have done?
That's a question with no easy answers.
It's not.
But grappling with it, even hypothetically, can help us navigate the complex moral landscapes we face in our own lives.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
About the choices we make and the things we might justify along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and how easy it is to kind of get swept up in something that maybe in hindsight you're like, oh, shoot, was that the right call?
Right.
But at the time it seemed like the only option or the best option.
So much to unpack here. Judges 18.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that stays with you.
It really does. It makes you question your assumptions and wonder if we've really come that far from those ancient struggles.
I don't know, have we?
What strikes me is how the story challenges us to examine our own laishes. Not just those places or people who might be vulnerable, but also those areas of our own lives.
Right.
Where we might be tempted to compromise our values.
Yeah.
For the sake of ambition or just getting ahead.
It's easy to read the story and point fingers at the Danites.
Right.
But what about those moments when we turn a blind eye to injustice
Yeah.
or benefit from systems that exploit others?
It's uncomfortable.
It's a much harder question to face.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to look outside than to look inside.
Yeah. But that's where the real work begins, right?
Yeah.
Judges 18 isn't just about condemning the actions of the past.
Right.
It's about recognizing those same patterns in the present and choosing a different path.
So how do we do that? How do we become more aware of those laishes in our own lives and make choices that really align with our values?
I think it starts with cultivating a sense of critical awareness, questioning the narratives we're given, both religious and secular, paying attention to the power dynamics at play in our relationships, our workplaces, our communities, and asking ourselves those tough questions. Who benefits from this situation? Who is being marginalized or silenced?
Yeah, it's a constant process, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, this deep dive has made me realize that ethical living isn't about achieving some perfect state of moral purity.
Right.
It's about ongoing reflection and a willingness to challenge ourselves and those around us.
Yeah, those uncomfortable conversations sometimes,
Yeah,
but necessary.
absolutely.
And it's about remembering that even small acts of courage and compassion can make a difference. Speaking up against injustice, standing in solidarity with the marginalized, choosing to support ethical businesses and organizations. These choices may not make headlines,
Right.
but they are the building blocks of a more just and equitable world.
I love that, and it's so true. It's the little things that we do every day
Yeah,
that really add up.
they really do.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Judges 18. It's been a journey through ancient history, moral dilemmas,
Yeah,
and some surprisingly relevant connections to our own lives.
absolutely. And as we wrap up, I hope our listeners will carry with them a renewed sense of awareness,
Yeah.
a willingness to question assumptions, and a commitment to making choices that reflect their deepest values, even when it's difficult.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving to make the world a little bit better, one choice at a time.
Couldn't agree more.